Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today we have another special guest, Anselmo Torres III. Did I get that correct? So far, so good.
So
Am I
far, so
rocking?
good. Absolutely, man. That
All
was
right,
nice.
No, of course. Well, first of all, I'm excited to have you here because you started talking about it. You told me from Dallas. I'm like, let's get to the meat and the potatoes live in the air in the lab. And I think you're the perfect candidate as if I'm interviewing you. You're the perfect guest to step into the lab. And the reason I say candidate, I think, is because I think as my guests that come into our community as practitioners and they're experimenters, and they come in and they're solving a problem. And yours is very interesting because we've never had a sustainability expert, I would say, in a lab messing with fluids. We're going to talk about all that good stuff. So
yeah, all right.
First of all, I do want to welcome you, but I did want to level set to the people who are tuning in today, who we have stepping in the lab with us. Welcome, brother.
Hey, man, that was quite the intro. Appreciate it.
We're just getting started. So I always think, Anselmo, when I have someone, sitting across from me, the beautiful thing is it's like we're getting to know each other. But I think it's always fascinating, with their backgrounds of, what their, what's your elevator pitch, et cetera, et cetera. Forget all that. We're going to throw that out the window because I think we all come from different walks of life, and then we end up in real estate somehow. So I want to take a step back and figure out who was Anselmo before, what you're going to tell us today about what you're doing for people. And I like to tie those pieces together because I do believe your business is a reflection of who you really are. So talk to us from maybe the very beginning of who Anselmo was and how you got to where you are today.
Awesome, man. So from the very beginning, I'm right now I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Yeah. But I grew up in Arizona, Wilcox, Arizona specifically, very small town in the southeast corner of Arizona. And grew up, my dad was an engineer. And so, it was always about efficiencies, finding efficiencies in everything that we did. And, even to this day, I can still hear him talking about, hey, turn off the lights if you're not in the room, or hey, why is the water on? Turn off the water. Just thinking about different ways to improve efficiencies in everything that we did. So just growing up in Arizona, obviously water is it's not everywhere. It's a pretty rare commodity out there. I mean, it's just not laying around. It is a desert for the most part. So, we're always looking for ways to save water and just, again, that efficiency was just drilled in my head. So I think that's really played a part into what I'm doing now with sustainability and water conservation and all that.
Okay, so we're going to take a step back, and I like how efficient you are. You got straight to the point where you do today. We're going to take a step back. Would you say was it marketing, sales, and sustainability? I see that as kind of like your Venn diagram. Would I be correct? Was that the background?
Yeah, definitely sales. Sales in the background. I went to college at the University of Arizona.
Yeah.
I started working for a hockey team.
See, now we're getting somewhere. See, now you're unpeeling. Okay, that's hockey.
And the hockey team, the cool thing about it was it wasn't like a Division I program. Mm-hmm. It was a club, but we played at like a 4,000 seat arena, and it was packed every Friday and Saturday, which is crazy. But we get all the kids from the Northeast that couldn't play on a Division I team, either were too small, not fast enough, just not good enough, whatever. But then they would come to Tucson and they get this opportunity to play in front of 4,000 fans on a Friday, Saturday night, and who wouldn't want to do that? I mean,
yeah, the adrenaline, of course. That's what I'm thinking about right now, is because I played sports when I was in college. Playing with no crowd, it's like how you get that electric, that energy, right? So that's interesting. So did you guys set that up, or did you find out about the club? Did you put the club together? What was it?
I actually, I played baseball in high school, and the coach of the Ice Cats at the time was a kind of like a scout for the Chicago White Sox. So he would, he ended up in my town watching some baseball games that I was playing in. I've been playing baseball all my life. I just figured, you know what, it's time to put the glove away. I'm ready to move on to college and try something different. So when I went to the University of Arizona, he asked me, hey, you want to be a part of the team? And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I would love to. I've never been around hockey players or hockey in general, really. And it was just a cool experience.
Wow. Wow. So you definitely got the sports background. Now, of course, we're going to let the people know. Tell us what it is that you do. And, we kind of reversed engineer, and we're going to engineer forward ahead because you talk about efficiency and the engineering background.
Yeah.
Talk about what you're offering to multifamily investors or multifamily property owners within the community so we can get a good sense of what you're able to offer us.
Absolutely. So I'll even take it back about 5 years ago because it really got me to this where I'm at right now.
Interesting.
So about 4 or 5 years ago, a friend of mine who his name is Ryan Wayner, owns a huge multifamily property management company here in Texas, about 25,000 units. And we were talking. He was telling me about this idea to help monitor water consumption on his properties. He got a bill for about $18,000 on one of his properties, and normally it's about $8,000. So nobody wants to pay $10,000 more on a water bill than they need to.
And that's in one building, just so we don't lose you.
Yeah, one property on one property. And so he started keeping track of the daily water consumption on an Excel spreadsheet. He was telling me about this idea, and I was like, no, we can build a software and we can make it easy so that anybody on the property could type in that number and it feeds into our system, and then it tells them whether or not there's a leak or if there's not, if the water property is good.
I'm so surprised that you thought that way as an engineer. That's impossible.
The way he laid it out on the Excel spreadsheet, I started thinking, whoa, let's put it on an app. Let's build a software program for this. Let's make it easy so that anybody everywhere on a phone could type this in and instantly find out whether or not their property is using a lot of water. So we did that, right? And we were doing it. We put it on all of his properties across, mostly here in DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma. And in that time, I came across SAS, Sustainability Solutions. They're a water conservation company. And what we do is we help property owners and investors achieve water conservation through the installation of ultra high efficiency toilets, shower heads, and aerators. So through that conversation, SAS is a conservation sustainability company. Sustainability has to exist after that last toilet is installed, right? So once we leave the property, it's not like water just flows efficiently after that, right? So
what do you mean by that? So just, I want to make sure we don't lose that point that you just made.
So, I mean, once on the majority of the properties that we work on, they're 1970s, 80s, older properties, typically Class B, Class C properties. It's not so much if it's going to leak, it's more of when it's going to leak, right? So how do we prepare for that? And how do we have a solution to protect the owner and investor when that time comes? So that's kind of where I came into play, is bringing and the software we created was called LeakAware. So at that time, we said, hey, LeakAware could be that solution where we go in and we install toilets, shower heads, and aerators, but as an insurance, kind of like an insurance policy, you guys can use LeakAware and keep track of that that daily monitoring of that water consumption, just to make sure that it's staying consistent, it's not exceeding what the normal limits should be, and you keep that asset protected.
Wow, so this is genius. I really love this because you're getting to the what we love is vertical integration, so to speak. And so you're solving the issue, you're identifying the error, and then you're giving them the tools to prevent or to be able to actually manage the potential, I guess,
Yes.
or catching it on the front side.
Yes, because right now what's happening is for a lot of investors, owners, is they don't know about that leak until 30, 45 days later when they get that water bill, right? And so now you're in reaction mode. Like, okay,
Yes.
God, something's going on. We got to go find it. What's, where's this leak coming from? So just having a monitoring program like LeakAware helps you stay ahead of it, right? So instead of that leak, water is super destructive, first of all. So the quicker you can get ahead of it and get that leak resolved, the better it's going to be for you financially and structurally.
Okay.
On the property.
I want to get to all these gems because I'm taking notes in the lab, man. We're not just here to listen. We're diving in deep here. I got my practitioner here, and I'm really happy. So I wanted to understand from when you talk about your friend with the 25,000 units, you sparked the idea. Was that a software that you created, or you guys created together, and then you took to SAS, or was that? I just want to make sure I connected the dots. Okay.
Yes. So me and him created it together. We basically,
you had like a beta version, or like how did that look like?
We did. We had a beta version. Really the beta version was the Excel spreadsheet, right? So then from that point, it was creating the software and a website so that it all could be automated, right? And done online. So anybody with a cell phone on any of those, let's say 200 properties that were inputting the meter reading could do it straight from their phone. Typically, it was maintenance guys or girls that, as they're doing their morning walk through the property, picking up trash and just doing a quick scope of the property, they could enter in that meter reading. And as soon as they press enter, they've got an idea whether or not that consumption is reasonable or if they need to find a leak.
Okay. So, and that's interesting. I just want to get a little bit granular, not too deep into it. Just from tactical perspective, someone might be listening, this is interesting, but how does that even really work? Do you guys like tack on to a meter? Like what is it you're plugging into? Is it any meters? Does it have to be a specific company type? Like how does that integration happen? Just so our listeners can start connecting the dots and think, hey, maybe I can do business with you. How does it work?
So most properties, actually every property has a water meter, right? Yep. That the city bills you for. Right.
Yes.
So if you understand how many meters the city bills you for, then you go find out where those meters are located. And that's the actual reading that you are capturing, right? So on a daily basis, typically Monday through Friday, or whenever they're working, they're going to that meter, that physical meter, and typing in that meter reading that's showing up on that meter on their phone using our software and website. And then that's when it tells them whether or not the consumption is high or low. So there's no hardware, right?
So you're using data, and you're kind of you're accumulating a bunch of data and then looking at the kind of the average. Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So, if we understand it's 100 units on that property, and your daily consumption on a good day is, let's say, 50 gallons. All right. And then tomorrow we come and we enter in that reading and it says 100 gallons. Something's going on, right?
Okay.
And if it consistently goes up, now we know that there's something deeper. We need to find that leak.
Yeah, and I want to get to that point because you talked about how water can be destructive, and I want to bring that to light. Going back to the meter, where are these typically located in, let's say, 100 unit? Is it multiple places where someone has to go? And when that's someone, who is that? Are we passing that responsibility to the property manager? Like who's in charge?
So typically it's somebody from your maintenance team. That's because they know where the meters are. Typically, if you've ever had a leak on a property, they know where to turn off the water, right? And most of the time that's located at the actual meter. So they almost always know, hey, this is where the meter is located. And so then they can enter in that meter reading, right? That's what we want, is them to be engaged, because whenever there is a leak going to take place, the maintenance staff is typically who's going to be fixing it.
Right.
It's not going to be anybody else collecting the data. So what this allows them to do is kind of take ownership of their property and get ahead of it before the property manager finds out, or the asset manager, or even the owner, right?
Okay. So are you giving best practice advice? I'm assuming some folks could fall behind and maybe not check it every day. Is that something that your company provides? Say, hey, you should really be looking at it every day. But in other words, here's another best practice. Like, do you guys step into that, or is it just like, here's your tool, this is what you should be doing, and God forbid you don't do it, then you're going to miss out on the tool that we've provided you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say use the tool. First of all, it takes, anywhere from a minute, 2 minutes to actually type in that meter reading.
Yeah.
We're also looking where we've explored other ways to where it's automated, so that
Right.
nobody is even required to go to a meter.
Right. That's where my brain is thinking as I'm listening to this just from an
Yes.
automation perspective.
So we have that in place already as well. There's different cost structures, so it really depends on what kind of money you want to spend. But the idea is, hey, let's at least, if this always comes to my mind, right? If it can't be measured, it can't be managed, right? So if you're measuring it, you can manage it, and you can get ahead of any of these issues. And typically on these multifamily properties, that water and sewer expense is in the top 3 of your expenses on your property, outside of typically payroll and sometimes taxes, just depending on where you're at. But that water and sewer expense, it is up there. It's one of the highest ones that you'll encounter.
Absolutely. So this is fascinating because I think you're answering, you've answered all the questions. Now, I want to get back to water being destructive. You talked about if the numbers start to skyrocket, you've brought it to the attention, you've actually captured it ahead before it gets worse. What are some of the areas that maybe property owners, asset managers, themselves are not aware of a lot of these areas where there is a lot of waste that's occurring? I want to get into what the problem that you're solving. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I got to experience while creating this software is I actually got to walk over 30,000 units, right? Over 200 properties. And I typically think that I've seen it all, but you walk into a new property and it's like, wow, okay, I've never seen this. But you'd be surprised how many people, even if it's where the residents pay the water, how many people do not report leaks. Either they just don't want anybody coming into the residence while they're not there, or that small uptick in their portion of the bill isn't significant, so they don't report these leaks. I was walking into units all the time, and one of the first things that I would see is, on a lot of properties, the toilets with the flappers, which is the majority of toilets on properties, have that flapper. That flapper has like a 2-year lifespan.
Wow.
If you haven't fixed that in 2 years, it's more than likely started to disintegrate, and you've got a slow leak taking place.
So in other words, that's just for those of us who are listening, that's that sound that you hear of the water running, trying to fill it back up, and then it runs again on its own. Is that what you're?
Yes, it fills up, right? So
Every time leaks, fills back up.
Fills back up. That's what I like to call a silent leak. The other things that we'd always come across is tub diverters, right? On some of these older properties where in the tub diverter is where you got the handles down on the bottom, right? And then you've got that one nozzle that kind of, you turn it to engage the shower head up there. Well, a lot of those were faulty, broken, or just not even working. So it didn't matter if you had a great efficient shower head. There's still 5 gallons running out of your tub diverter while you're taking a shower, or even if it was off. So
really,
the simple things, I would always encourage you to do those due diligence walks. It doesn't take that long, and you can find out a lot of information about the condition of your property just by spending 1 to 2 minutes inside that unit and listening for things, watching for things, especially like water. And as you mentioned, it's super destructive, right? So that tub diverter that's got that slow leak that continues to drip, when it comes time to fix that unit for the next resident, more than likely you're going to have to refinish that shower tub because that drain or that drip has messed with the paint and just you've got to refinish it. So that's an additional cost.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just as you're listening to as I'm listening to this, I'm only imagining how, and I'm very curious to what specific range maybe most of your clientele is sitting in, because I will say for the simple fact I think it's like a compound effect of the multiplier at scale, and I want to talk about that. I can only imagine this being worse at scale, like from 100 units. I mean, you talk about 25,000 units. I can't even imagine. That's fascinating, right? But I guess, is there a sweet spot where maybe you would say to someone, oh, well, I'm sure you wouldn't say to someone, but whose attention are you grabbing? Is it the 100 unit guy, 30 unit guy, or 1,000 unit guy? Maybe all across the board, but which guys are really getting crushed with the lack of having a system like yours?
I would say every one of them, right? I mean, because the 6 unit, 30 units, right? Even if the water bill is normally $200 and it goes up to $1,000,
yeah,
I mean, there goes all your NOI, right? I mean,
yeah. So this is interesting. You're bringing this to light because to me, I'm thinking, okay, this is like even the big guys are getting crushed. But if you think about it, because the NOI would be highly impacted, it's kind of like on both ends. Not only are your expenses greater as you go up in scale, as we know, but then it probably kills the little guy just as much. So if you're listening, you don't think that this applies to you, it does. In other words, that's a plug for you there, Anselmo.
And especially now,
Yeah.
I can't emphasize this enough, especially now, especially with with COVID taking place. More residents are spending more time in their units, right? They're using their units more. So the water consumption has just increased 3 to 5 times what it was pre-COVID, right? So now that water and sewer expense that you had budgeted for 2020 has just shot up, right?
Got it. So you, in other words, you saw this coming, Anselmo, and you position yourself in the marketplace for the right opportunity to solve a problem.
Yes, and, it's
No, but I think that's such a good point. That's such a good point, and I think it's the reason why I love having you in here as the subject matter expert is, in addition to solving a problem, there is I think there's so many, I hate to say opportunities, but this is an opportunity to solve a real problem that people should be taking into account, because to your point, I think a lot of people now are going to be working from home. So to your point, that's going to impact a lot of our listeners out there who may have several properties, a couple thousand units, a couple hundred units, or even a couple, dozen units. So I think that's definitely something that you just brought to light in my world as well.
Yeah, and especially right now too, people are looking at their expenses, right? How can I cut down? What expenses can I cut down, right?
Yeah.
So I would love that opportunity to help you cut down that water expense, first of all, just because it is something that you can reduce easily, right? Either through monitoring it or even implementing, or installing ultra high efficiency toilets, shower heads, and aerators. It makes a big difference, and you'll see it right away.
Speaking of a big difference, talk to us in the lab. We get real tactical. Talk to us about Niagara Stealth 0.8 GPF. I do my research, man. I do. I saw your stuff. What is that? The most efficient toilet in the industry? Tell the people.
Yes. So, not all toilets are created equal, right? Not all low flow toilets are created equal. So the beauty of the Niagara Stealth Toilet, and we've exclusively partnered up with them, is it's only a 0.8 gallons per flush toilet, right? Typically what you see on properties right now is at least a 1.6. If it's 60s, 70s, 80s older and no toilets have been fixed, you're looking at a 3.5 gallon per flush toilet to a 5 gallon per flush toilet. So it's a huge reduction, right? The beauty of what Niagara has done is they re-engineered the toilet. They didn't just make the tank smaller so that it uses less water. They actually re-engineered the toilet so that even with a 0.8 gallon per flush, that 0.8 gallons is really just rinsing the bowl. It's the technology inside that's really pushing all that waste down the line. One thing I wanted to emphasize too is that it has one of the furthest line carries in the industry.
What does that mean?
What I mean by that is the point of flushing that toilet is to get the waste out of the bowl.
Out of sight, out of mind. Get it out of there.
Into the sewage system, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And out of your property. So that's what that line carry means, right? So it has one of the furthest line carries, even with only using 0.8 gallons of water. The other cool thing is it doesn't have a flapper, right? Almost all the toilets out there have flappers. This one doesn't have a flapper. So, you don't have that leak that takes place because that flapper starts getting faulty after 1 to 2 years.
In other words, longevity with these new toilets is also another thing you're getting out of it.
Virtually maintenance free. I mean, unless you are putting a hammer to the bowl or something and breaking it, they're virtually maintenance free. And it's been in existence for, I think, over 12 years. So we've been putting these on properties. We install these on, over 40, 50,000 units a year, right? So these toilets are going on, Class B, Class C properties built in the 70s, 60s, 80s across the USA. And we don't get issues. People aren't calling us back saying, hey, it's not flushing. So that's one of the huge perks about using these Niagara Self Toilets.
That's very, very interesting, Salmo. I appreciate that. And I guess to tie it all together, I guess, we're sitting together. Let me just get into some, the space here. I own 100,000 units. All right, guys, you heard that? 100,000. I'm sitting with you.
Yeah.
This is a great problem that you can solve for me. What does that conversation sound like? As you come in, and again, I'm interested. Forget, this is more from a business model, because I love hearing the different unique business models, right? During a gold mine, providing the shovels. So from that perspective, how do you angle that pitch to me, make sense out of it? And then again, the whole vertical integration part, how do you sustain that relationship with me? I know you talked about it and you touched on it, but I want to see it unfold together for our listeners as well.
So there's really two people that come to us. They're the proactive ones, and then they're the reactive ones, right? I'll say
the ones who have lost a lot of money.
Yes. Yeah. Or they just got that bill that was ridiculous, and now they got to find out what to do, right? But we'll start off with the proactive ones, right? The proactive ones are coming to us while they're in their deal underwriting, right? They're underwriting a property. They want to find out any value add opportunities, any way to reduce that operating expense to improve NOI and to boost that asset value. So they approach us, say, hey, I'm going to put an offer in on this property. Here's the unit mix. Here's the property name. Here's the address. Put together a proposal for me so that I could be a little bit more competitive, right? So we get those, and then let's say they win it, right? And the first thing that they do is they want to implement that water conservation because they've already built that into their CapEx budget. So it's one of the first things that they do typically once they close on the property and take it over. The reactive customer is the one that got that huge water bill and consistently gets that huge water bill and decides, hey, we need to do something, right? We can't continue doing this. It's taking out all of our NOI. We don't like this. So that's where we come in. We can do a full assessment on your property. What we mean by that is we'll go in and we'll walk every single unit of that property. We'll document the flow rates of all your fixtures. So your toilets, shower heads, aerators, your bathroom and faucet aerators. And then we'll document any front of the wall leaks that we come across. Once we're done walking that property, we put together that report, send it to you so that not only can you get all those leaks fixed right away, but you also have an idea of what kind of fixtures are on your property. And then if you want to move forward on an install, we go in. We typically do anywhere our crews, we have about 13 crews that travel the country nationwide for us. they're typically installing anywhere from 50 to 60 toilets a day. So they're moving in and out of a property really quickly. So let's just say it's 200 units, within a week, we've removed all of your old fixtures, installed all new fixtures. So you can start capturing those savings right away.
Wow. That's a hell of a, that's what's up. So,
Yeah.
one outstanding question that hopefully can serve everyone too is, as far as the leaks go, do you guys outsource that to a third party? Because it seems like you're solving the issue, managing, being proactive, but leaking, is that in your scope of work?
So typically what we do is, most properties have a maintenance maintenance guy or girl that they're paying to maintain the property. All we're doing is providing that data back to the property manager, property management company, so that their on-site staff can fix those leaks, right? Okay. It's part of their job, right, to get them fixed. So I guess it's more of like a third party where we just want to and assess it and provide that feedback and data back to you.
That's amazing. Well, right before we drop, I want to make sure that we first of all, thank you for that enlightenment, because I think a lot of us in the space need to hear that or be aware of it. Yeah. And I'm so happy that you're able to step in here and do that. I said in the beginning, I believe you're a reflection of how well your business is. You're an efficient individual running an efficient operation with your company. I'm very curious to hear real quick on the rapid fire questions. What are some of the tools that get you, going throughout the day? So what is maybe a best tool that you've currently been using that you feel has been serving you well? It could be an application, notepad, anything that helps you excel throughout your day.
So I've, once COVID kind of hit and we were locked in place, I started riding my bike every day.
Nice.
And that has kind of carried over. I continue to ride my bike in the morning. Usually it's about 10 miles. So I get a nice bike ride on in the morning. The other thing that I started doing as well is a friend recommended a book to me called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's a great book. But so I read that. And then after that, I started journaling, right? Just kind of writing down my ideas. And because one thing he said that stuck out to me was, write down your ideas, because ideas become things and then things become actions. And so I've started writing things down. It's crazy how some of those things have become actions over time.
Again, I could make this up. You're so efficient that you knocked out literally 3 questions in 1 answer. In my Rolodex, you just, when you got it, you got it. What can I say on someone? Right?
Thank you.
Of course. What do you, what is, I think I guess the question I always like to ask is always the biggest misconception that you think people have about, I know you're on the expense sheet for you. So do you think, is there a misconception that you often hear with your 30,000 units of walking that you've done?
Yeah. So I think people always overlook the toilets, right? You walk into all these units that have been upgraded. They got the great new paint, the new, kitchen or bathroom faucet, the marble, the granite countertops. But then you leave that same toilet that's been sitting there since the property was built. Yeah. So not only does it just doesn't look good, but you're also losing out on the efficiencies and what it can do to save you money, as well as just morally, right? You're saving water ultimately.
Absolutely.
That's one of the big things, is just don't forget about how water conservation can impact your property.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, because we do like that enlightenment, and I think you hit on those today. With that said, thank you for stepping into the lab. You provided so much value today, and I guess I'll leave you with that. If you if you were gonna pick, I guess a I guess, a specific asset class that you like to work with, or that you've worked with the most? Which one do you think that is? Is it people who are really thinking about the whole value add, or do you feel like maybe Class A gets overlooked? Is there a specific one that comes to mind?
It's mostly C-class properties, right? That's where we see the greatest return on their investment, and that's where we see the biggest impact on NOI. So the C-class properties, anything that's been built between, basically before 1996, because once 1996 hit, the requirement was that all toilets had to be 1.6. Before that, they could be 3.5 or 5 gallons. So that's really the driver for us is, those properties that were built before 1996 with those old dinosaur toilets.
That's very interesting. Well, listen, just like that, you have heard it, guys. Where can we find out more about how we can save money and make more money? Because that's what you do. You improve the bottom line of the people. Where can we find out more about what you're doing, your company is doing, Anselmo?
Great. So sasconserve.com is the name of our website. So conserve.com. So it's sasconserve.com. Go to our website. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. My name is Anselmo Torres. Just look me up. And that's the best way. And it's funny you mentioned we all like to make money, right? Because that's typically what I get is, hey, saving water, blah, 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 blah. How do you make me more money?
Yeah.
Once we're able to articulate that to them, the light goes off. It's like, okay.
Absolutely. That's like, marketing 101. Like, what problem are you solving for me? Forget how you do it. And I think you know how you do it. And I think that's important. But essentially, that's what you're doing. So I think if you're someone out there who's in the real estate space, of course, that's why you're listening to this show, and anything about your bottom line and how important it is to manage those expenses, I think you have a gentleman who's sitting right in front of us if you're listening to this, and Anselmo Torres, and he came here, Torres III, and he came in here and dropped a lot of knowledge. So thank you so much, Anselmo, for stepping into the lab, playing around with some test tubes, putting on your lab coat, and giving us game. We appreciate that, my friend.
Hey, thank you,
Just
Ruben.
like that, we are out.